Hi and welcome to GCSE Survival with UK History Lessons. This is episode 2 of our Weimar Germany series. This is about the Treaty of Versailles and the Weimar Constitution. Let's begin by talking about the Weimar Constitution. As you've seen in the last video, the Weimar government is called the Weimar government because it fled to Weimar during the communist uprising. The Weimar Constitution was signed on the 11th of August 1919 by then President Friedrich Ebert. That's the 11th of August 1919. It has a number of strengths and weaknesses which you need to know for your course. Let's begin by taking a look at the strengths. The Constitution was extremely democratic. It allowed men and women over 20 to vote. Every single one of them. There were Reichstag elections every 4 years. The Reichstag is obviously the German version of the parliament. There'd be presidential elections every 7 years. The Reichstag also had absolute power. Any bill they voted through would become law. This is marked contrast to how it was under the Kaiser, where the Kaiser could basically declare laws and ignore when the Reichstag said anything. Every German citizen enjoyed basic human rights, such as freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and equality under the law. There were also some serious weaknesses. Firstly, the Reichstag, or Parliament, was voted on a proportional representation system. A proportional representation means that whichever percentage of the vote a party receives is the number of seats they get. For example, 32% of the vote would get you 32% of the seats. The threshold to win one seat was 60,000 votes, so as long as you got that number, you would win at least one seat. The trouble with proportional representation is that not everybody can always agree all the time. Most of the time, a coalition had to be formed, as no single party had a majority. A coalition is where multiple parties who are different work together to form a government. The trouble with Weimar Germany was that the coalitions were not 1 or 2 parties, but 3 or 4 or perhaps even 5 in some cases. Another weakness was the Article 48 of the Constitution. This allowed the president to use emergency powers, which essentially meant that they could do anything they want as long as it was considered an emergency. They didn't need the Reichstag's permission for this either. This caused a lot of problems, especially later on, as the definition of an emergency was not properly written out in the Constitution, meaning that it could be easily manipulated. One of the first things the Weimar government had to deal with was the Treaty of Versailles. Many right-wing figures saw the Weimar government as November criminals, because they signed the armistice ending the war. They also saw the German defeat as being caused by a stab in the back by left-wing groups and politicians. On the 28th of June 1919, the government signed the Treaty of Versailles. That's the 28th of June 1919. The Treaty of Versailles was the World War I peace agreement, and there were many harsh terms that Germany had to deal with. Firstly, under Article 231 of the treaty, Germany had to accept full blame and responsibility for the war. This is seen by many, and was seen by many back then, as very unfair. Germany had to pay Britain and France war reparations of £6.6 billion. That's around £378 billion today, which is a lot of money. The purpose of this reparations was to pay for war damage, so things like roads and bridges and houses that had been destroyed during the war. Germany was also forced to shrink the size of its military significantly. They were allowed 100,000 soldiers, 15,000 sailors in the navy, and only 6 battleships. They weren't allowed submarines, tanks, or any form of air force. Germany also lost a massive amount of territory. Firstly, they lost Alsace-Lorraine to France, Eupen-Malmedy to Belgium. The Saar region, which was kept by Germany, had to give all of its coal to France. The Polish corridor went to Poland. Upper Silesia, or part of it, was split between Czechoslovakia and Poland. The Rhineland, which is an area near France in Germany, became a demilitarized zone, meaning that no soldiers were allowed there. Germany also lost all of its overseas colonies, its whole colonial empire. All of these colonies went to Britain or France. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Episode 3 will be coming out very soon. Please remember to like and subscribe, and maybe keep notifications on so you know when I next upload.